There was a moment in internet history when one platform ruled everything. In a world where the internet landscape is now dominated by social media giants like Facebook, TikTok, X, Instagram, and YouTube, it's easy to forget about how at one point in time, Myspace reigned supreme. And it wasn't even close. In the 2000s, millions of people logged into Myspace daily to connect with friends, share music, and customize their profiles. Myspace became the center of the online universe and quite literally shaped the modern internet and social media landscape we know today. In fact, in 2006, Myspace became the most visited site in America, overtaking even Google. But if Myspace was so dominant in the 2000s, why is it no longer relevant today? Because while the world was busy customizing profiles and adding friends, the company was making decisions that would determine its future. While some of those decisions helped Myspace dominate the internet, others would ultimately destroy it. This is the story of how a once unstoppable social media giant that looked poised to control the future of the internet quickly became irrelevant and now a relic of the past, and how the decisions made along the way shaped the future of social media forever. Before Myspace became a case study in corporate collapse, it was a digital revolution. In the early 2000s, the internet looked far different than it does today. It wasn't clean, it wasn't structured, and it wasn't organized. It was extremely chaotic and unpredictable. Every website felt like an experiment, and you never quite knew what you were going to find when you clicked on a website. The internet of this era was quite literally a digital Wild West, and in the middle of this chaos, Myspace emerged. In 2003, Myspace was founded by Tom Anderson and Krista Wolf. And yes, I'm referring to what was everybody's first Myspace friend, Myspace Tom. They created Myspace in response to other emerging social networking platforms such as Friendster. But while platforms like Friendster did have a solid user base at the time, Myspace was able to overtake them in what felt like overnight. They were able to do this because they were offering users an experience that felt completely different from anything else they were able to find online. While Friendster was slow, buggy, and didn't allow for much freedom for its users, Myspace was able to stand out because it was the exact opposite, with extensive customization options that allowed users to really express themselves and create profiles that felt like an extension of their personalities that they were able to project out into the world. And Myspace really did allow its users to customize everything, from backgrounds, colors, HTML, and most importantly, music. Myspace's music integration allowed them to become major players in the music industry at the time, as new and indie artists were able to upload new songs directly to Myspace and then communicate directly with fans on the platform. Entire music scenes exploded into cultural relevance due to Myspace's music integration features alone. Myspace was truly revolutionizing both the internet and the world, and the numbers reflected it. By 2005, Myspace had over 20 million users. And then by 2006, when the social media platform briefly overtook sites like Google and Yahoo to become the most visited site in the US, it had reached over 100 million users. But while Myspace may have seemed unstoppable during this era, underneath the surface, the cracks were slowly beginning to form. While Myspace's extensive customization options were the driving force behind the rise of the platform, that same feature was also setting the platform up for long-term failure. Unlike other platforms at the time, Myspace didn't just allow customization, it actively encouraged it. Users could change almost everything: colors, fonts, backgrounds, music, graphics, animated GIFs, and entire HTML templates. It was often messy, chaotic, and completely unhinged. And for many users, this is what made the platform feel so alive and addictive, as this was the first time millions of people around the world could truly showcase themselves and their personality online. Before Myspace, most people could only ever really express themselves and their ideas to people they interacted with in regular day-to-day life. But now, this had all changed. And while customization features are what propelled Myspace to the forefront of culture, behind the scenes, they were also creating a nightmare. Every person's profile loaded differently, and every user's HTML could break the layout. Every new feature had to be stacked on top of user-generated code, and while it may have appeared publicly like Myspace was growing, behind the scenes, its entire infrastructure was straining. And this slowly started to become apparent to users as well. as bugs continuously multiplied and pages began to load much more slowly. Security holes started to become apparent, and in 2005, a massive virus, the Sammy worm, became one of the fastest spreading computer viruses of the time. It was becoming clear that the more users were able to customize their profiles, the worse the platform was going to continue to perform. As you can imagine, this was a huge dilemma for MySpace, as customization was the foundation the platform was built on. It was what its users loved about it. If MySpace was going to pull back on these customization features, they would need a complete overhaul of their brand and would risk losing their massive user base. So MySpace made a decision. This was a decision that would be crucial to the future of the platform. Instead of pulling back on customization features, they continued to keep the chaos so that they could continue to grow and would deal with the consequences later. And while this may have worked in the short term, it was a decision that would ultimately haunt them, as it was one of the core reasons they would become irrelevant by the time the next wave of social media platforms entered the scene. Because while MySpace chose to sacrifice its platform stability, emerging competitors like Facebook were choosing an alternative: structure. By the mid-2000s, MySpace wasn't just a trendy new site in the internet, it was a cultural giant. And when a platform becomes so massive, it's sure to attract the attention of corporations looking to capitalize. And this is exactly what happened in 2005 when News Corp purchased MySpace for an enormous sum of $580 million. News Corp was a media empire founded by Robert Murdoch and was the same company behind recognizable names like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and more. While this was seemingly a perfect match, as it would give MySpace additional resources and News Corp would gain instant relevance in the new social media landscape, the truth is, this move would ultimately end up being a nightmare. Because with News Corp's acquisition of MySpace, the primary mission became to monetize as much as possible. This meant that ads became the primary focus, and the flooding of ads onto the platform caused pages to now load even slower and for the platform to now feel less personal and more commercial. Behind the scenes, engineers were begging MySpace's leadership to rebuild the platform's infrastructure after years of chaos had caused the platform to function poorly. But MySpace ignored these pleas and doubled down on ads instead so that they could maximize short-term profit. But while MySpace was making these decisions, a new competitor was attacking the market with a complete opposite approach: Facebook. Facebook's platform was clean, fast, and structured, and while it may have allowed for less customization, it was far more reliable and functional. While MySpace was choosing to chase short-term revenue, Facebook was optimizing and building a strong infrastructure for the future, and the mistakes being made by MySpace would lead to their inevitable downfall. By the late 2000s, MySpace's problems were no longer just technical, they were cultural. While MySpace once felt like a digital revolution that defined the internet culture and social media landscape, it now felt outdated. And while MySpace had reached its peak with over 115 million users in 2008, the signs were becoming obvious. People no longer bragged about their MySpace profiles, and all of the customization options that once made MySpace popular now made it feel juvenile. Meanwhile, users started migrating to Facebook in droves, as it took the opposite approach and provided a clean, minimal, and reliable platform. And in May 2009, Facebook officially overtook MySpace in the crucial US market after already having done so globally the year prior. It was at this moment that panic finally began to set in. They began rushing out new features and redesigns of the platform, but it was already too late. In 2010, MySpace attempted to rebrand into a music-first platform, and even brought in Justin Timberlake in 2011 to try to use his star power to bring the platform back from the dead. But once again, it was too little, too late. Throughout the 2010s, users quickly began moving on to other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, while MySpace continued to deal with a decline in users and technical issues like in 2016, when 360 million old accounts were found for sale online as the result of a data breach that occurred prior to the site's relaunch in 2013. And by 2019, the site, which had 115 million users 11 years prior, had now shrunk down to a user base of only 7 million. What was once the most popular website in the US in the mid-2000s was now a ghost town. MySpace didn't fall because of just one bad decision. It was a pattern of bad decisions that continuously prioritized short-term growth over long-term impact. When the signs began appearing that the site was having technical issues, MySpace chose increased customization over platform stability, When users wanted a personal and non-commercial experience, MySpace doubled down on ad revenue over user experience. When engineers warned that the platform needed redesigns, they chose quick fixes over rebuilding. And by the time MySpace finally began to panic and attempted to reinvent themselves, the culture had already moved on to newer platforms that continued to innovate. Ultimately, Facebook didn't beat MySpace because it was cooler, trendier, or more customizable. It beat MySpace because it developed a scalable infrastructure and optimized for long-term stability over short-term growth. They prioritized functionality and consistency over chaos. In the end, MySpace's collapse was totally avoidable. In fact, MySpace had such a massive advantage on the competition early on that had they just made a few strategic moves, it would likely still be the dominant social media platform today. But they never prioritized long-term vision or innovation and instead became a platform that hoped to keep users through nostalgia. But users don't stay on platforms because of nostalgia. They stay because of functionality. And in a world where the digital landscape is constantly evolving and changing at a rapid pace, MySpace's story is a cautionary tale of what happens when you don't. Because all it takes is a few short years for a platform to go from completely dominating the internet and culture to a platform that anyone only ever thinks about when they come across a video talking about its downfall on YouTube. But despite its downfall and mistakes along the way, MySpace at least deserves credit for revolutionizing the internet and being the catalyst for the digital world we know today, as it truly was responsible for changing the world forever. And as we go forward, it should be a reminder for all online platforms, no matter how dominant they may look today, that they should always continue to innovate and prioritize user experience over short-term revenue, or they too could suffer the same fate in the not-too-distant future. This was the Visionary Analyst. Please consider helping the channel continue to grow by subscribing, dropping a like on the video, and following my social media accounts linked in the description below. And stay tuned for the next video, where we will be uncovering the reasons why McDonald's completely flopped in Bolivia.